She dresses like that to go out for noodles. This line in the Mood for Love is an excellent entry point to the fashion in this film. Because yes, she does. Mrs. Chan dresses like that for noodles and for hallways and for Heartbreak. Wong Kar-wai's masterpiece is one of the great examples of restraint in cinema. There's no outbursts, no climactic confessions, but there's this mood and this longing which grabs us by the feelings and it doesn't let go. Fashion in this film really becomes part of the language, so let's unpack. Mrs. Chan is designed to stand out to us and to the world around her. When she's heading to the noodle stall or walking in the hallway, she's always in these stunning cheongsams with her hair styled perfectly. The people around her seem to blend into the background while she really commands the frame. Her wardrobe is central to the visual storytelling in this film. Do you know how many cheongsams she wore in total? 21 cheongsams. And my favorite one, just if you're interested, is probably this one. Anyway, they actually had 46 made for the film apparently, but only 21 made the final cut. The dresses in the film act like time markers. Because the film moves through time quite quickly and is often set in the same places, a different cheongsam signals to us a new day. But they also follow Mrs. Chan's emotional journey through the film. In some scenes, her dress is mirroring her environment. Her first outfit matches the curtains in her new apartment, and later on this green dress is kind of mimicking the wallpaper in the office. This kind of physically ties her to the space and adds to this idea of domestic confinement in the film. It looks beautiful, but it feels claustrophobic. You might notice that oftentimes when she's with Mr. Chow, particularly after they've developed feelings for each other, her dress is very subtly matching his tie. This might seem like a little bit of a stretch on my part, but I personally feel like everything in this film is intentional. I feel like this is done to kind of connect her to him when they're together. Then it matches her with the walls when she's alone to kind of reinforce the idea of loneliness. Like I said, storytelling through fashion. The role of color symbolism in these cheongsams is also genius. We're seeing red in moments of longing and desire, we're seeing green in moments of jealousy, and we're seeing white in moments of perceived innocence. But more on that later. The fabrics themselves are giving kind of feminine or vulnerable, but the high collars and rigid cuts are giving a lot more restriction and composure and control. There's a kind of tension in the messaging of the garment itself, which is then reflected in the character. These cheongsams are much more of a visual language than a costume. Just a very brief history of the cheongsam for those who don't know. This kind of slim, high-collared version that we see in the film evolved in 1930s Shanghai and became a kind of symbol of femininity, but also sophistication. But after the Communist Revolution in 1949, it wasn't really worn in mainland China anymore. A lot of the Shanghainese who relocated to Hong Kong took the cheongsams with them. So there is a fair bit of cultural memory in Mrs. Chan as well. If Mrs. Chan is representing elegance in the film, Mr. Chow is kind of representing old world sophistication. In what seems to be quite a chaotic world, Mr. Chow is calm, collected, and perfectly dressed. His appearance in the beginning is always composed. You can tell that William Chang, the costume designer, has paired Mr. Chow's wardrobe with Mrs. Chan's to reflect a kind of emotional symmetry. He wears single-breasted jackets with narrow lapels, trousers with a subtle pleat, and always a crisp shirt and a tie. Even when he's at his desk or in the hotel room, he might take off his tie or loosen up, but he never abandons the silhouette. Like we spoke about in the Chungking Express video, Mr. Chow has a uniform, and his uniform is both presenting and concealing. A huge element of the characters in this film is that they internalize the opinions of the people around them, which makes me feel like these suits aren't just about style. They're about maintaining dignity in front of all the eyes that are on him. He's maintaining control to his appearance even as his personal life is falling apart. There aren't many times when Mr. Chow's appearance falters, but when it does, it is kind of in the film's emotional cracks. So let's get into the story. In the Mood for Love, at its heart, is a story of restraint. They can't act on their feelings because it can't survive under the current conditions. They're drawn together by their shared heartbreak, but they have to go up against the gossip of their neighbors and the weight of custom and the fear of being improper. Throughout the film, clothing is the mode of expression. It tells us what's not being said. Early on, I guess fashion is kind of like the detective. Mrs. Chan notices her husband and Mr. Chow have the same tie, which kind of reveals the affair. But this is mirrored in the fact that she's facilitating her boss's affair at the same time. When she tells her boss that the tie from his mistress looks good on him, it's showing us that she sees what others miss. And through this, the film is prompting us to pay attention. Later on, when Mr. Chow asks where he can find her handbag to buy for his wife, she tells him that a woman would definitely mind if she had the exact same bag as her neighbor. She says this gently, but it kind of reveals her awareness. Also, side note, how cool are these semi-transparent teacups? Would love to get some of those for myself. Anyway, this kind of attention to detail shows us how both of these characters navigate their world. An extension of this is when Mrs. Chan changes into heels and leaves her slippers behind to fool the landlords. Clothing in this film is a tool of communication and survival. Within the interiors of the staircase, the hallway, the noodle stall, and the office, Mrs. Chan's dresses not only show us the passing of time, they also hold a mirror up to her emotional state. When she's borrowing a newspaper from Mr. Chow, she's wearing a white cheongsam with black dots, signaling a kind of delicacy or innocence. When she hears that Mr. Chow and his wife have been fighting, she's wearing a bright green cheongsam, which seems to be showing jealousy. But probably the most overt example is when she does the first kind of outwardly romantic gesture towards Mr. Chow. When we see her feelings really rise to the surface, she wears this bold red coat, obviously signaling like love and passion. I think the fact that we're seeing these feelings in the fashion adds to how frustrating it is that their relationship never happens. You can also note that at the end of the film, years later, we see her wear a dress with a lower collar and a much simpler cut. I feel like this is showing us a kind of resignation and acceptance, like, she's moved on. Meanwhile, in Mr. Chow's fashion story, at one point we see him reading a letter from his wife in a singlet. This is one of the few moments when his visual control sort of starts to slip, and it feels quite intimate. And his appearance kind of becomes more unraveled as his emotional state declines. When we see him letting Mrs. Chen out of his hotel room after her visit, his hair is noticeably coming undone. This is pretty much the only point in the film where he's got a hair out of place, so we can only assume that it's deliberate. It shows us the conflict between his personal feelings and his social obligation, and we're seeing him go into meltdown over it. Of course, their relationship never fully materializes and it breaks all of our hearts. But I hope that you can see that despite the lack of dialogue, the clothing is saying so much. To understand the full depth of the film, it helps to know where the director comes from. Wong Kar-wai was born in Shanghai in 1958 and moved to British-occupied Hong Kong in 1963. He didn't speak Cantonese or English, and he really struggled with the language barrier. This feeling of cultural in-betweenness can be seen in a lot of his work. In the Mood for Love is set in Hong Kong as the city was kind of moving into the modern world. Public image mattered a lot more than private desire. I really feel like throughout the film, the cheongsams reflect that tension. As a garment, it allowed women to project elegance while still conforming to the conservative landscape. Mrs. Chan is alluring yet composed, never provocative. The character and the dresses are all striking a balance. I personally really love how the cheongsam in this film isn't a costume, it's more of a vessel for emotion. It isn't really nostalgic or decorative, it's more like Mrs. Chan's negotiation with a world that won't let her speak openly. And that's why In the Mood for Love resonates so deeply, because it's personal, and it becomes really personal for us, the viewer, as well. In the Mood for Love is a film where barely anything happens in the traditional sense. There's no confession, there's no consummation, but to say that the style overshadows the story here is to miss the point entirely. Because in this film, the style is the story. Mrs. Chan's 21 cheongsams aren't just wardrobe, they're dialogue. They're the medium through which the story unfolds. In 1960s Hong Kong, women were stepping into public life, but emotional expression, in particular romantic expression, was still very much bound by social expectations. If you were to just read the screenplay, this film might seem a little bit sparse, but on screen, we get to experience the story through fashion. It's genius how Wong Kar-wai lets clothing carry the emotional weight. And maybe that's why In the Mood for Love endures, because long after the credits roll, we remember the dresses. Oh my God, that was a tough one. I really put a lot of pressure on myself to make this because I really wanted to do justice to the film. But obviously, I'm not a professional scriptwriter and I'm also not a professional video maker. So it may not have turned out exactly how I intended, but I really hope that you understand what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I made an Instagram for this channel. It's here. It has no posts and no followers at this point, but it will have some posts and hopefully have some followers. So go check that out if you're interested. Like and subscribe. No.